Well, over the past, as Richard said, over the past 6 years or so, I've been involved in a project communicating the science of climate change. And one outcome of that project was a film called Thin Ice, which was premiered on Earth Day last year. And it was actually screened at Vic here and all around the world. And so some people in the audience here may have seen the film. In making the film, I had a unique opportunity to speak to a very wide range of scientists. And I actually interviewed over 40 climate scientists and filmed them carrying out their research in all parts of the world, including the Arctic, Antarctica, and on the Southern Ocean. And it was really an amazing experience. And what it really did for me, which is really what I'm going to talk about today, is make me think about science in a much more general way as a human endeavor. And what I want to do is suggest to you some ideas, 2 ideas in fact, which I personally feel quite strongly about. And the first idea is that there are many ways of thinking and looking at our world, but the scientific approach has the best chance of ensuring our future well-being. And the second idea, which some of you, I don't know how many people in the audience are scientists, some of you may find surprising, is that I think that almost everybody is instinctively a scientist. So science is not something that's sort of divorced from the vast bulk of people. Most people actually, though they don't quite realize it, are scientists. So to begin with, I'll just show a short video clip, which is 2 climate scientists talking about what science is.
What is science? Science is a process of thought. Science is the way you think about the world. Science is the way you ask questions to find out new things.
Science has given people indoor lighting. Science has given people computers. Science has given people enormous mobility through transportation. Science has given people amazing improvements in healthcare for those who can afford to have it.
So now I'm going to tell you a rather silly story, which is not true, but I'll tell it to you anyhow. And the story goes like this. I live in the countryside, but I work in the city. And every day I go to work by train, and I have a reputation for always arriving at work on time. But one day I'm very late, and I miss several important meetings. And my boss asks me why I'm late. And I reply to him that I can give him 2 explanations of why I was late for work. But to begin with, I need to tell him that the rail network was closed because of major rail works, and so I came to work by car. And my first explanation is that there was very heavy traffic on the motorway, and I got stuck in a traffic jam for an hour. And that's why I was late for work. But I have another explanation, which he might like to consider. And my second explanation is that I was kidnapped by aliens. And beamed up into their spaceship, where they interrogated me for over an hour before finally returning me to Earth. And I found this rather nice picture on Google, which is from a paper of a driver of some rickshaw in India being kidnapped by aliens, just to show you that this does actually happen. So what I'm really trying to illustrate here are different ways of explaining observations about our world. And in fact, though you may laugh at the alien explanation, it cannot actually be falsified. This may surprise you. Because it doesn't fail to explain everything that happened that morning. For every question that my boss could ask me about the alien story, for instance, why didn't anybody else report sightings of aliens? Or the details of how I managed to get into their spaceship, I can come up with an explanation. The aliens employ mind control. They can make themselves invisible. And they can teleport people, and so on. So I can come up with endless explanations that will counter any query that anybody could have about my alien story. And so the alien story is not lacking in explanatory power about the world, though of course I don't expect you to believe it. And if it was leaked to the media, who knows what the public reaction might be. The real difference between my two explanations is that the first one, the traffic jam one, can be tested because it makes very specific predictions. In other words, the more mundane traffic jam explanation is full of predictive power. For instance, you could use the physics of motion and traffic flow to calculate how late one is likely to be for any particular traffic conditions, as well as the worst time to travel. This way one can compare my actual arrival time with the sort of prediction that you might make from traffic conditions. And if there was a large discrepancy between the two, you might doubt the traffic jam explanation. For instance, if there were no traffic jams in the area at that time, you might doubt it. But in a world with alien, or for that matter, divine intervention, where there is control outside our world over our thoughts and the behavior of matter, one can't say very much about the future unless one knows the mind of aliens or God. In effect, there is no basis for making any prediction about the future that would be useful. Thus, the key point that I'm really trying to make here with this story is that science enables one to make precise predictions about the future based on past experience or observations, something that is not possible in any other worldview, whether it be spiritual, religious, or involve aliens. So that's really the key power of science, is it actually allows us to predict the future based on what's happened in the past. And that's really quite an extraordinary thing. And if a scientific prediction fails, which it does, quite often, in fact, then its scientific basis is re-examined until a new scientific theory is arrived at, which is successful. So science is continually being tested by the future, and that's how science works. However, with a non-scientific worldview, the failure of a prediction generally doesn't lead to a re-evaluation of the basic ideas. And so that's really, I think, the fundamental difference between viewing the world from a scientific point of view and viewing it in any other way that you choose to view it. But don't get me wrong here. These other worldviews are not lacking in the ability to explain the world. They are full of explanatory power. Many cultures have wonderful stories about the origin of the local landscape. And the Bible has a beautiful creation story. There's lots of explanation there. It's just that we can't do very much with them, with that explanation. And so I would say that they're not very useful. There's explanation there, but what can you do with it? Okay, so what's so great about making predictions about the future? Well, surely this must be the ultimate survival skill. You know, as an organism surviving on the planet, if you have some idea about what's going to happen in the future, you can be prepared for it. And you're a hell of a lot better off than somebody who has no idea what's going to come next. And that's why I think people are instinctively scientists, because in a sense, the scientific approach has come out of our evolution. We have all, in a sense, evolved to take advantage, or evolution has taken advantage of that. And if you think back to our hunter-gatherer past 10,000 years ago, then you can see that the desire to observe the world and develop explanations that could be used to make predictions about the future, for example, when is fruit likely to ripen, or what sort of weather conditions are you likely to have in the future, or where are woolly mammoths most likely to congregate so that you can go and hunt them. These would be immense advantages to be able to make those predictions, and would have greatly increased our chances of survival. And today, we humans have taken this much, much further in creating our modern society. So, for instance, we can use the theory of gravity to predict the tides. And it's not a one-off prediction. It's not that we get the tides right once or twice. We get them right every single time. And we're so confident about our predictions with gravity that we can put space rockets on the moon. And astronauts are willing to get into those space rockets and land on the moon because they're confident that it's going to work. We can use the theory of electric and magnetic fields to predict how electrons will flow along wires, and therefore to make electric circuits and build computers. And these computers work. We can fly aeroplanes around the world using these computers. In fact, almost everything in modern life now is controlled by computers. And that's all based on the prediction that electrons will flow along wires in a particular way, and they do. We can use the atomic theory of matter to predict the behavior of materials and how they might respond to particular forces. And we can build bridges and buildings that don't fall down. And we're so confident that we're actually prepared to drive over them. And look, this is the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, and I don't know if any of you visited it. It's the most amazing bridge. And this is a triumph of engineering and comes from our scientific understanding of steel. And this is made of steel, and it doesn't fall down, and we know it won't fall down. And we can use the theory of chemistry to design drugs that will cure diseases. And these drugs do cure diseases, and people don't die. And that's based on the prediction that chemicals will behave in certain ways, and they do. And there are many, many other things that science will do. And this brings me on to the final theme of this talk, which is about climate change. And I'd just like to begin with two scientists talking about climate change. So could I have the next clip, please?
I wrote a paper in 1975, and of course, it's the first time I found out recently that the term global warming was used. It was a paper in Science. So people say I'm well known because I named global warming, and I cringe because I don't want to be remembered because I named global warming. I want to be remembered because I did some damn good science in my career.
I had an external examiner for my PhD viva who was a very renowned climate scientist. I remember coming out of my viva and talking with this examiner, and he was asking me what I was going to do next, and I said I was a little undecided and toying with the idea of going into the business world. And he said, well, the problem of climate change is such an important problem, and it's up to your generation to solve it. We need good scientists to solve this problem now. And it's really our responsibility, actually, to study and understand past climates, the evolution of the planet to the modern day, so that we can try and either ameliorate the future or at least understand the future.
I think that sums up quite a lot about what I was trying to say about the predictive power of science and how important it is. And I think everybody here would agree that the planet's climate is changing. And through scientific research, we know why. And we can use our understanding of the physics of the climate system to make likely predictions about what will happen in the future if we continue burning fossil fuels at the current rate. So our science is giving us a view into the future. We can look into the future through science, and only science will let us do this. And this is a fantastic scientific achievement. In fact, one of the greatest scientific achievements, in my view, of modern science. And this is really a point that I want to make. And yet, the public response to this is really rather strange. Rather than being thankful that we have this scientific understanding, there is a surprisingly widespread tendency to attack the whole scientific enterprise, which I believe goes against our basic instincts. To me, this is like a traveler in the desert who knowingly empties out his water bottle. Why would anybody want to do that? The result is inevitably going to be tragic. Here are two more climate scientists talking about this theme.
Well, it's especially odd that people seem so skeptical of scientists and science and the scientific enterprise when it comes to climate. We're not really any different from any other scientists, except people look at us more. And they seem so willing to believe the worst of us, despite the evidence all around them that science as a field works and corrects its error. And scientists are just too contentious to have any conspiracy. Scientists are just not good conspirators because they're just too curious and they just like to talk too much.
And often when I go and talk to school groups, I come away wondering whether I've just scared them. And I think it's important to tell them, no, don't be afraid. You know, here's something that we're going to get through, but for you kids, yeah, take it seriously. Don't be alarmed or afraid, but join in this effort. You know, become the best scientists or engineers you can, and yeah, let's solve this problem.
If you want to watch more of that sort of conversation with scientists, then you can do that by watching the film Thin Ice, and I can give you, anybody who wants to, I can give you information about how you could go about doing that. So my message to you today is that science is part of what we are, and we owe our success to the ability it has given us to shape our future. We should never forget that. Thank you for listening.